take a look at this picture first here, just to give somebody just a quick overview of what we're doing. Is here you have your instruments and mics. They go into the mixing board, which is what we have here, where the sounds they're added together, and any processing you want to do, which is like tone control or limits that you put on the sounds. Then you add those together and you send them out to your different mixes. So you have one mix here going to the let's say the main room, and this is the one going to the overflow room, and then there's other mixes in our setup. But this is the basic idea of what you're doing. The amplifiers just take whatever the mixing board sends it and makes it louder. So if you don't take care of any problems at the mixing board, all you're going to do is amplify them, make them worse here. Okay, so this picture here is kind of the overall setup of our mixing board. So we have different sections, and I think that helps somebody understand how to go about doing this. First of all, you have inputs coming in. Everything attaches to the back of the board. So you have inputs or channels. When we refer to channel, we mean an input. And output is going to be called a mix. So we have channels and mixes. The inputs that we have in our setup come from mics up front, instruments, and the computer. So the sound out from the computer is also into one of the channels. And then heading out of this mixing board, we have one mix going to the sanctuary, which is called the LR or left-right mix. And then we have another feed going to the overflow, so the overflow mix 1. And then mix number 2 goes to the monitors, and that would be the speakers up on the platform, so the band can hear what themselves play. And then we have mix 3, which goes to the narthex or the lobby, and also to the nursery. So 4 mixes: the sanctuary left-right, overflow mix 1, monitor mix 2, and narthex mix 3. That's how we have it all wired up. So the first section of the board is the input or level and processing section, which is right up here, this section right here. And then we have the touch screen, which is right here. And then we have the headphone jack and volume area, which is right here. And the fader section is right here. That would be this whole area right here. And the output control section is right here, this little area. And what we call the soft keys are right here. The light blue are soft keys. So that's the definitions of the different areas. That's where they're located on the board. What they actually do, the input processing section takes the mic signals and the instrument and the computer and anything else that you put in, and it can adjust the signal strength, it can adjust the tone quality, it can adjust the equalization, which is PEQ and GEQ, or parametric equalizer and graphic equalizer. It can set limits on the sounds with the gate and the compressor, and we'll go over those more in a minute. And then once the processing here is done, it sends the signal to the fader section. And the fader section basically adds the channels together. So if you want to change one volume, you can raise it, another one you can lower it until the sound is balanced and it's how you want it to be. And then you take that, and it's going to go, then it heads out to the mixes. Something to keep in mind with the faders, because this is digital board and it has a lot of capabilities, the faders only alter the particular output mix that's selected in the output section. So if we are working on, say, the sanctuary mix up here, the faders would be controlling, if we've pressed the sanctuary mix button, the faders will be controlling the sanctuary mix only. So if I raise this vocal when sanctuary mix is selected, it doesn't change the mix going to the overflow. So you have to keep in mind that you have to select each mix to make changes that you want to. The output control, or this section right here, it allows you to choose which mix you're going to work on. So if I want to choose the main left-right mix or the sanctuary, I press this button right here, LR. If I want to go to the overflow, then I press mix 1 right here, and we have these all labeled. Mix 2, again, monitor. Mix 3, narthex. We aren't using the rest of the mix buttons down here. So let's say that it's too loud in the main sanctuary. I press the left-right button, and I can adjust the volume of that mix here. All this does is adjust the volume of the main mix, and it selects which one the faders are working on. The soft keys are up here. Looks like I need to change where I have my drawing here. They're up a little higher. And these are shortcut keys, and you can tell them what to do. So we have this soft key set to mute the praise team, and this soft key is mute, meaning turning off the channels. And this would mute the other mics on the platform, like the wireless mic, the pulpit mic, and the shotgun mic. And then this one would mute everything. So if there was a strange sound or somebody didn't know what was happening, they could hit the mute all button and everything would just go off. Or if you had to walk away from it and you didn't want anybody to come up to a mic, and you can hit mute all. And this will mute all the channels in all the mixes. Okay, and then over here we have something called scenes. A scene is a snapshot of the board. So you can take, once you have the board set up how you want, what you'll do is you'll hit the scene save, scene store button here, or there's another way on the touch screen. Scene 1 is the one we normally use for the service, but let's say like last week we had a special music come up, so that means that the mics have to be set differently for different vocals, and I stored those in scene 2. So once scene 1 is done and stored, I can then take and alter my faders, adjust it for special music, and I can save that in scene 2. Once it's all set up, as the service progresses, you're running in scene 1, and when the special music starts, you just tap the scene 2 button, and all the mic changes, all the faders and everything that you reset for the special music, all those settings are recalled for the special music. Then you just go back to scene 1 when they're done, and you're back to your regular program. PAFL is another thing that we need to talk about. PAFL, you see PAFL buttons on each channel here, and you see PAFL buttons on the main output right here. PAFL stands for pre or after fader listen, and that is how you attach that channel or mix to the headphones. So if I select this PAFL here, then the headphones, which plug in right here, will be listening to just this channel. If I select it over here on the main mix, then it will be listening to the main mix. So if I want to listen to the main mix that's in the overflow downstairs, I would hit the PAFL button here, and I would hit the overflow mix right here. Then I would be listening to not just one channel, but all the channels that are going to that particular mix. And I think that's enough to get started. Okay, so when we turn the board on, we want to follow the same rules we've been using. Over here we have that the amp goes on last and off first, and that's still true. So before we would turn our board on, we press this button and held it. But right now we have the board set up so it's not part of this switch. So you have to switch the board on separately, but you still do it before you turn the amp on. Right back here, down behind here, next to where the power line comes in, there's a small button, and you press it. Just press it in once, and it takes a second for the board to boot up. When it boots up, it restores whatever settings you had on when you turned it off. Then when you're done, then you can turn the amp on. When you're shutting the board down, a little bit different. You still follow the rule, turn the amp off first. And then you'll go here to press the home screen button. And right here is a selection for shutdown. And it asks you if you want to shut it down, and you say yes. And then once it gives you the OK, then you can turn off the button in the back. Service, we will have everything muted with the soft keys because it's a little easier to turn things on and off. The PC is not muted at this point in time because usually the first thing that we're doing is playing music as people are coming in. If instead of music from the PC we're using the piano, then we may want to leave the piano on, but because you can hear it in the room, it's okay to leave that muted and just have the sound coming directly from the piano. But normally we'd be playing music over the PC, so we would have that on. As the worship band takes its place, the people in the sound booth, of course, are paying close attention to that, and they notice them taking their place. And maybe after the guitarist puts the guitar on, or people sit down, or so that you don't hear noises as they're getting shuffled around, then you can unmute the praise team. When I hit this button, the praise team is opened up, and we remain mute on the shotgun, the pulpit, and the wireless mics. So it doesn't matter if the pastor is singing and his mic happens to be on, we won't hear it because it's muted. So the praise team is now open, and the faders are all set where we set them during practice. So that's in start setting. When we practiced, there was no one in the room, so it might still be that we need to do a little bit of adjusting, but if we did our job when we practiced and set up, then they should be pretty well set. But anyway, you still want to take the headphones and listen to the overflow room and make sure that still sounds right to you, and the narthex as well. You can just hit those buttons real quick. As long as your PAFL is on the output, the sound coming through the headphones will be whatever is sent into those mixes. If the headphones are too loud or quiet, you can adjust that right here with this button, this dial right next to the headphone jack. As the praise team finishes the first set of songs, then you'll want to mute the praise team again, so that if they speak to each other or shuffle papers or something, you don't hear that. And you will unmute this section. So now all the stage mics are on. You may not want them all on. Maybe you still want to have the wireless one muted, but you'll do that manually, just hitting that channel. And say you don't want the shotgun mic on. You're just going to listen to the pulpit mic now. So that one's on. So the person gets up there and does the the welcome and reads the scripture, and they do the announcements, and say that this week the announcements are going to be done by whoever's wearing the wireless mic. You can take and mute the pulpit and unmute the wireless. Wireless 2, we don't use that often, so it's off right now, so I don't have that muted. But if we were going to use wireless 2 for that week, you'd want to mute that too. So then we get through the announcements. The offering, if there's a special music, well, you're going to go over here to special music scene and hit that one, and then you're set up for that. We'll with all the platform mics muted, and maybe just the lead vocal mic and maybe a guitar or whatever is playing will be unmuted for that. When they're done, you'd go back to scene 1, and the congregational prayer. Again, you'd probably just have the pulpit mic on for that. That's usually where the prayer happens. But we're also going to want to open the shotgun mic now, because we're going to send that downstairs. The shotgun mic is not assigned to the main left-right mix. So no matter what you do with this, you're not going to hear the shotgun mic in this room. The reason for that is it'll feed back in the main speaker, so we don't even have it routed to the main mix now. But when the prayers are happening, you want to go to mix 1 here and PAFL here, so that you're listening to the announcements or the prayer happen, and you're listening to what they're hearing downstairs. So you can hear the balance between the shotgun mic and wireless 1, and you want to get those kind of close, because downstairs you don't want them to hear the pastor speaking real loudly and the person speaking super quietly. You want to get them kind of close. And we have the shotgun mic, it's able to do that. You can adjust those so that they're pretty well in balance, and you should do that. Once the announcements are done, you can go back to turning off the shotgun mic if during the prayer, so that while the person's praying, doing the final prayer, the shotgun mic is not on, then you'll just hear the wireless mic, and it sounds better than having both mics on. Okay, then we go to our next phrase. So we'll go back and mute all the, now we'll go back and mute all the stage mics. Now notice I have some of these muted. When I hit mute, you get the flashing, but there's also a steady on. They are all muted. These are sort of double muted. So when I turn those mics back on, I still have my mute settings that were on before I hit this button on. So this does not cancel any other mute settings that you had. So we're going to mute the platform mics and open the praise team back up, and then they can do their other two songs. When they're done, you'll mute them. And now you just have to be paying attention as to who's speaking. Are they going to speak, the sermon, is it going to be on the pulpit or is it going to be on the wireless? And you want to keep the shotgun mic off, wireless 2 off, and just going to have either the pulpit or wireless 1 and 2 on. Another note, we now have all these channels defined here, and up front we've relabeled all the mic jack inputs so that every week this will be the lead vocal mic, and then vocal 2 and vocal 3, if up to 3 vocals. We have an empty spot here if we want to add another vocal or another guitar. We can put it in this channel. We have the guitar. Each week we usually have a guitar, and then this is like another instrument of some kind. Let's say somebody had a cello or a second guitar or whatever. We could use it. We could assign it to channel 6. The piano is always going to be on 7 now, and all these are just going to be, they're going to stay in this position instead of having to move around every week. So it gets a little easier for people to know. They don't have to look and see which channel it's on this week. It's always going to be on that channel, because it's confusing. There are layer buttons here, and to keep this board has a lot of capabilities, and to keep the board from being 3 times as long, they have defined these faders in 3 different ways. Right now we're using the channel strip here, and that's by pressing this button. If we press this button up here, all these faders mean something completely different. They don't follow this strip labeling, they follow this strip labeling. So basically right now this fader controls a stereo input that we're not using. Stereo input 2, 3, and these are different effects that you can be using. And these are groups. Again, we're not using these effects. Mix 1 and 2 and 3. Now we are using these, so this is another way to control. If I changed at this point with this button pressed, this would be controlling mix 1, which would be right here, the overflow mix, and this would be controlling mix 2, and this would be controlling mix 3. And the left-right would still be right here. So that's what those are about. If you press both of these together, we go to a custom strip. So if we want, we can define this custom strip in the middle to be anything we want. We're not using that right now. Really, all we're using is this button right here. And I just say that because if somebody accidentally hits this one, nothing's going to work the same. You have to realize that this is because we have a board that can do a lot of things. We're really only using this part of it at this point in time. So if your channel lights are not lit up, you've got to press this button here. Well, I adjust the left, right, however I want to. And then I put the headphones on, and I hit mix 1 with my fingers. Well, you don't want to keep your finger on that because they move. You lift your finger off as you change the mix. And then you'll make the adjustment on that mix. And then you press the narthex and you make the same adjustment on the same channel on that mix. So it's not too hard to do, but it's hard to remember to do because it's tempting that once you fix it in the main room, you don't fix it anywhere else. If I go to scenes right here, this gives me a list of what scenes I have in there right now. So Sunday service is our main scene. Special music is the scene we set up for when someone's coming up there and doing a special, like an offertory. I have an experiment scene just so I can play and not have to affect our regular scene. And then I have a backup in case somebody alters the Sunday service. I just store that and back up once in a while. Processing button right here. There are sections right here. They're outlined. So this is one section having to do with the inputs. And then let me go to a regular. Got to back up a bit here. This screen is a very versatile, confusing thing if you think about all the things it does at once. But if we think about it in pieces, we'll just talk about processing, and what that means is how we handle the sounds as they come into the board. I have to tell this screen, what do I want to work on? I want to work on this channel right now. I want to work on channel 1, our lead vocal channel. And now this is telling me where I have the lead vocal channel set. We've defined this to be vocal 1. We've called it that. The gain level has to do with how loud the sound is coming into the board. We want to have enough signal coming into the board so that we can process it and send it out without it being too weak and kind of wishy-washy. Okay, but we don't want it to be too loud, or it does what we call clipping, which is overloading the circuitry. So if I go over here, I select this button. Preamp is the gain, and you'll watch this knob will turn right there. So as I turn this, I'm changing the gain. If we had somebody up there talking right now, you would see right over here this light. Oh, okay, we got a little bit of sound coming in on the piano mic. It's probably hearing us back here. If you hear a signal, you'll see a light flash. That means that mic is taking a signal in. And this will flash at minus 20 something dB, which is a really, really quiet signal. 0 is kind of what we want. We want to change the gain right here until we get the 0 light flashing or on steady, but not a peak light. And this middle light here tells me that signal's right in the sweet area that we can process it correctly. Once we get that, we leave the gain alone. Right over here we have what we call the PEQ, or parametric equalizer, and that allows us to change the tone qualities of the sound, filter out sounds that aren't right, because sometimes things reverb in the room a little bit, or the room dynamics make a certain frequency not sound good, or it might make it so that a certain frequency is quiet and we have to amplify it. This, you can watch this first one here, this first little, and that we've got that set right now at 100 hertz, and I can move where that is back and forth. And what this is, it's like a notch, and it's going to cut out those particular frequencies. So I can move it back and forth. I can change how much it cuts out, or I can turn it again and it'll actually raise it up. So if I wanted to amplify that area, but I don't, I want to leave it down. And I do this just basically listening to the sound in the room. When nobody is in the room, it sounds different than when everybody's here. So it's good to know how to adjust this, because sometimes you need to adjust this during the program because of humidity in the room, how many people are in the room. Lots of different things like that can change where you want. I've been using these buttons. Each one controls a different point on the board that you can raise or lower the frequencies. There's 4 of them. If I don't want to use these, I can also, by touching this section, I select PEQ, and now I have again 4 controls. If I touch this right here and turn this knob, it's exactly the same thing as using this knob here. If I touch this one, it's the same as using this knob. It just gives me a numeric value for it, and it makes it, some people prefer that. If you want to set it for a certain number, you can do it that way. It's harder to do it this way. You know, if I want to get that to a certain number, it's a little bit easier just to use this one here. Gate is another, it's a limitation. It doesn't so much handle the equalization or the tone control, but it handles when a mic starts sending. Okay, well actually the mic is always sending, but it'll stop any signals that are below the threshold. So there's that this little arrow right there tells you where the threshold is, and I can raise or lower that. So if I'm getting a lot of sounds, like say from the audience through the pulpit mic, I can raise this up until I don't hear them through that mic. And when the speaker goes up there, his voice will be a lot louder than that. We want to make sure that it is. If he's, as he starts off speaking, you hear a little, like suddenly it turns on, that means you've got your gate up too high. You want to make sure that every word and sound coming from the speaker's mouth is heard, so you don't want to gate that out. but you want to gate other things out sometimes. So that's what a gate is. Compressor is over here, and what this does is it limits how loud a sound can get. Again, we have a threshold. The threshold tells us where we're going to start limiting the sound loudness. When someone is speaking or when instruments playing, there are peaks in the music program or the sound program that's coming out of their mouth or instrument, and those peaks can cause feedback in the room or a sound that you don't want to hear. So I can bring this down, and that will cause anything above that threshold to be limited. And I can control here with the ratio how much it's limited. So if I want, right now it's at 3.2 to 1, which means it basically cuts down to about a third of what the peak was. So it lowers the peak above the threshold. And I can change that right here, the ratio of that cut. The makeup gain, when I bring the peaks down, the sound level is going to sound quieter because I've taken some of the energy out of the sound program, and I can replace it with the makeup gain. So I press gain and I turn that up, and you can see this top one here that tells me how much gain I'm adding back in. So it has the effect of taking the peaks out of the sound but raising the rest of the program up louder. So it actually makes it so it's clear, the speaker is clearer, because the normal quiet things that they say are louder and the really peak loud things are reduced. So that's what compression's all about.
It's amazing.
So I'm going to let her just play a little bit. So we got the signal coming in is good. See, we got this flashing and it's not peaking. If she starts playing louder and peaks, then we'll have to turn it down a bit. You'll see a peak light flashing here, here, or here. There's 3 different peak lights. Any of them flashes, you got to find out which one's peaking. Why am I not hearing her on the output here? Oh, because it's muted, that's why. There it goes, okay. Okay, now we can go through. Oh, the other thing I didn't tell you about was the high pass filter. That's this little curve right there. You can see that purple curve moving back and forth. It cuts off everything that's too low. And that's a good thing to do for most instruments and voices. You don't want to cut it off on a bass or a piano usually, or a drum set or something. But that keeps their low frequency sounds out that aren't adding to the mix, because the guitar doesn't produce sounds down there normally, just echoey sounds and things that aren't quite right. Okay, so what we're going to do is these settings in here now are from the last guitar that was playing, and we're just going to play with them. We'll put them all back to flat here. We're basically turning off this parametric. So I've got the parametric EQ in, so it's going to actually do something. And it actually sounds pretty good. I don't hear anything that I hate in that sound. But one thing that's interesting to do is to turn this up. And I'm actually not picking up any sounds in that area. When I amplify them, I can find the ones that aren't good, and then I actually, instead of, it's easier to hear them when they're amplified. And then instead of amplifying, I turn them off. But I'm not really picking anything up like that. It's not changing it at all. I'm not sure it's...